Good morning and welcome to our worship service at Central Unitarian Church. My name is Josef Machac. My wife and I first came to CUC 35 years ago at the invitation of our friends and neighbors who were already long-time CUC members. We have been coming to CUC regularly since then, along with our daughters, who grew up in our RE program and continue to consider themselves Unitarian, Universalist. My wife and I continue to be deeply involved in multiple CUC activities. Besides being a worship associate helping with coffee from time to time, I'm involved in our ongoing partnership with the Unitarian congregation in Prague in the Czech Republic, whose news you will receive in the next CUC newsletter. So again, welcome, newcomers, members, and friends, to our worship session at Central Unitarian Church. CUC is an inclusive community of all ages, which embraces diversity and identity, expression, and spiritual belief. We gather together each Sunday in worship to find inspiration, hope, and renewal among this community of like-hearted individuals. If you are visiting us in person, please be sure to say hello to one of our welcome hosts. Can I welcome hosts? Wave your hands. That's Elizabeth, who is busy. Anybody else? And Stuart, our welcome host. Thank you. If you are visiting us online, please be sure to click the link provided in the chat and sign our guest book by providing us with your name and contact information. We invite you to stay after service for coffee, conversation, and connection in the same space, as well as a special treat today. As we prepare to begin our service this morning, we ask those of you in person to please turn off all your spyware containing electronic devices, so to not allow any foreign intelligence agencies to disrupt our proceedings. I would like to bring to your attention some announcements. Today's Sunday service is part of the Women's Alliance speaker series. The theme of today's service is the three passions of Giovanna LaMarca by our featured speaker, Giovanna LaMarca. More details will follow shortly. The Women's Alliance is also offering a soup lunch at the conclusion of today's service. There will be a fee for each bowl of soup, $10 for each person and $20 for each family. Once you taste the soup, I assure you, you will know what a bargain it is. Let us also remember the ongoing food drive organized by CUC member Clara Croft. Is Clara here with us today? No. Well, in any case, the Kraft family. And it is used to support the Center for Food Action. Did you wish to say something? Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Morning, everyone. Good morning. You get the C team today. Claire's at Owl. Kyan's not feeling well, so you get me. Sorry. So just a reminder, we're doing the February food drive. This is the last week. We'll be in the back for a little bit today, not to disrupt the soup lunch, but I did want to give you an update on where we're at with the food drive. So remember last year, our goal, or what we achieved last year was $1,320, 11 bags of food. Very proud to announce, drum roll please, we are at 1,477 already, with a couple donations already this morning, so it'll go higher than that. And we've been, like I said, in the back for a little bit during the coffee hour before the soup lunch. We've also collected about 15 bags of food and other supplies, which has been great. A lot of great donations. So thank you very much for your participation. Great job this year, and hopefully we'll give another result next week with the final numbers. Okay.
Thank you very much. A few other announcements. Tomorrow, February 24, will be the Caregiver Support Group meeting here at 12:30 in the afternoon. The Peace Island Institute is once again hosting an iftar dinner for CUC members on March 11. Please RSVP. The registration form is in our weekly newsletter as well as other details, or contact the office to register. The Westwood Women's Club is having an event here at the clubhouse this week. So after we conclude our proceedings today, please help clean and organize the space after today's events, if you're able and willing. Maxie is going to come, so I assume that she's going to clarify for us what cleaning and organizing actually means. And now let us more formally begin our gathering. Please turn to a person near you and offer them a warm welcome. And now, I would like to ask our featured speaker, Giovanna LaMarca, for her centering words.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to start, since we're close to St. Patrick's Day, with an Irish quote. May your pockets be heavy and your heart be light, and good luck pursue you each morning and night. I'm not superstitious, but I have always considered myself lucky in the sense that so many opportunities and possibilities and coincidences have come to me, sometimes in the most surprising and unexpected ways. Is that luck? Perhaps you can call it that. But I also know that being ready in advance, being ready to advance your interests and your own plans for the future also plays a part. So I leave you with carpe diem, which is being ready and able to seize the day. Let us stand as you're able and sing hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken.
While our chalice is being lit, please join me in reciting our chalice lighting words, which are based on CUC's vision statement. We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all, to embrace the whole of our human experience, to honor our past and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope. We are not alone. Our lives are built on shared commitments, giving and receiving together. Our congregation serves as a place where we intentionally practice this shared living, interdependence in a culture that overemphasizes independence. One of the ways we practice our interdependence is through our congregation's finances, which depend on the generous contribution of members and friends. We pause each week to recognize this particular form of sharing, each of us giving what we can to support the mission and vision of the Central Unitarian Church. Your financial contribution helps each and every one of us to grow, to serve, and most importantly, to live lives centered on love. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Please join me in saying our dedication words based on CUC's mission statement. We dedicate these gifts in service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community. We now pause to take a moment to share our joys and sorrows. We do this each week as a way of caring for each other. We invite you to share the joys and sorrows you hold in your heart today. If you are online, you may do so by entering that information in the chat box. Those of you here in person may have already lit a candle and submitted a joy or sorrow which I will read. We will also offer a moment to those here to share out loud the names of those you are holding in your heart today. So let us quiet ourselves in order to enter that holy space of listening and of breathing in a breath of life and breathing out a breath of peace. And please join me in my concern and prayer for the United States, our republic, the brave people of Ukraine, the rest of the world, and truth and decency. And now I would like to invite you to join me in your heart to consider the words of the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal love. Amen. And now, please join me as you are able to in hymn number 159. This is my song. There was a time when all high school and gymnasium students in the whole Western world used to study and memorize the writings of Marcus Tullius Cicero, a Roman statesman and prolific writer who was used by countless students to study Latin grammar and expression, oftentimes not to their liking. Still very much relevant to our present times, during the time of the Roman Republic, he was a senator and consul, one of the two top executives of the Roman Republic. He came out of retirement to oppose the ascendance of Julius Caesar as a dictator. And after Caesar's assassination, by opposing in triumph of Mark Antony as a dictator who created a list of enemies to be eliminated. And Cicero opposed this dictatorship by writing almost every day an essay called the Philippics, which was posted in the Roman Forum, expressing his opposition to what was going on. For that, he was executed, and his head and his hands, since his hands were the instrument of his opposition in the Roman Forum. He's very much my hero for his heroic efforts to protect Republican democracy and freedom. As a philosopher, Cicero gave much thought to and wrote extensively on the topic of aging. So today's reading on the question of aging by Marcus Tullius Cicero. Nature has but a single course that every human must move through. Life has its stages, and to follow nature means that we must adapt to each of life's stages appropriately. And for this adaptation through life, virtue is our best instrument. It helps us adapt to each of the stages of life as we meet them. So the issue with aging is not aging, it's character. It's the same issue when we're young. The issue is not that we're young. The issue is, what is your character? The problem is always the same. The answer is always the same. The problem is character. The answer is virtue. On the question of inactivity, it's not a question of ceasing to be active. It's a question of changing one's activities. One can still engage the world actively and creatively. It's true that you may be removed from politics or your career. The important thing is to maintain your interest and your memory. On the loss of pleasure. Actually, old age opens up new possibilities for new kinds of new sorts of pleasure. The intellectual pleasures, learning, conversation with friends, and gardening. You have the leisure and time for gardening and turning your hand to different sorts of things that give you pleasure. On the supposed nearness of death when we get old. First of all, death is negligible. Either death utterly annihilates us, so what difference does it make? Or if we are virtuous, we are going to a better place. And if the soul is immortal, it has a future. So in either case, death should be something we should not be concerned about. Hence, old age is not a burden, but an opportunity for happiness. Now I would like to ask Kenya Peterson, a longtime member of CUC and one of the leaders of the Women's Alliance, to introduce today's speaker.
One, One day, I walked into Bloomingdale's in the Riverside Mall, and as I turned the corner, I heard a familiar voice. I looked around, and there was Giovanna doing what she loved, teaching and cooking. Bloomingdale's had invited Giovanna to showcase some of the recipes from her cookbook. I first met Giovanna at CUC decades ago. Giovanna and her husband Howard were long-term members of CUC, and Giovanna was always known for her passion for educating young people. She liked teaching so much that she postponed her retirement for 2 years. Giovanna taught for 23 years at her alma mater, the Bronx High School of Science. Giovanna's other passion, as we all know, was cooking. It was always a treat to be invited to dinner party at Giovanna and Harold's home. After Giovanna retired from teaching, she began a second career, publishing another cookbook, as well as a travel and language guide to Sicily. She taught cooking at the Institute of Culinary Education, which is a professional cooking school in Manhattan. She conducted guided tours of Arthur Avenue in the Bronx, which is the last Little Italy in New York City, and then COVID hit. After we all started to recover from COVID, Giovanna started her third career, this time as the YouTube star of Kitchen on the Cliff, which is produced by her granddaughter, Francesca LaMarca Sacco. And thanks to the success of this show, we can all Google Giovanna LaMarca and learn how to cook many delicious dishes.
Thank you, Genia. Wonderful introduction. I don't know if I deserve that much praise. I have it on good authority that I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth, or actually not a spoon at all. My first eating implement was an eyedropper, but that's a start. Let's start at the beginning. I was born on June 5th, 1939. On the day before my birth, which was a lovely sunny day, my mother, Concetina Cirugo, took advantage of the bright Sicilian sun to whiten her grandmother's hand-woven, king-size cotton blanket by immersing it in water, hanging it up to dry in the brilliant Sicilian sun, except that she was 7 months pregnant. And when she lifted the heavy blanket out of the water, in her own words, she felt something tear in her. But she ignored it, and since she and her husband Felice had theater tickets for that evening, they went to see the production. All was well until about 11 o'clock at night when Concetina asked my father Felice to take her home and call the midwife. Guessing correctly that she was in labor, I was born the next day, a mere 600 grams. Which is 1 pound, 3 ounces. I grew since then. Too weak to nurse, I survived on infant formula given with an eyedropper, my mother and grandmother's care, and my father's ingenuity. My father had a deli grocery with a glass showcase, which may do as an incubator, with the lights maintaining the constant temperature of the little incubator. This gave me many stories I heard as I was growing up. Passers-by who looked at the showcase saw among the fruit and the beans and the nuts and the legumes, olive oil, cans of tomatoes, coffee, sugar, and boxed pasta, what looked like a doll in a basket, and confused by the incongruity of the scene, they were shocked when I moved. And I heard this story over and over and over again. We thought it was a doll, and then you moved. That it was actually a baby swaddled in a blanket. But let me tell you about my father, who was one of 4 brothers, who, in the absence of any sisters, became his mother's assistant in the kitchen and grew up to love cooking. My mother was the granddaughter of a monzu. A monzu was a professional chef who cooked for the aristocracy and the church, who in the 19th century Sicily were the only people who could afford such a thing, a private chef. Antonino passed his skills, Monzu Antonino. This was a title, by the way. This was a title of accomplishment because they were trained chefs. So Monzu Antonino passed his skills to his son, Don Giovanni Cirugo, who was my mother's father, my grandfather. So I came honestly to my cooking DNA. I began to learn how to cook from my paternal grandmother, who was infinitely patient and lovingly indulgent with me as a very young child. When we came to America, I became my father's assistant, learning to make proper espresso coffee at the age of 10, which of course I wasn't allowed to drink. I learned how to cook our typical and traditional dishes from my mother, father, and after I married, I continued to cook for my family and for my family of friends. Howard and I delighted in home entertaining, with Howard setting beautiful tables with his Cooper Union art training, and myself keeping records of lunch and dinner parties, as well as holiday cooking in notebooks, first handwritten, sometimes decorated, and other times in chancery cursive calligraphy, which I taught in my art classes. And eventually typed and printed the collected recipes in binders for future reference. Meanwhile, my interest became a passion. As I expanded my knowledge and tried other cuisines, learned from friends, and as you can only do in the diversity of the United States, which we hope to keep. I also collected cookbooks during our frequent travels. My love of cooking developed during my first career. I began my teaching career at William J. Gaynor Junior High School in Brooklyn and had a wonderful mentor in our very own member, who is and continues to be, for me and Howard, the best friend, the one and only Mary Ann Claxton. So we've known each other since 1961, since before I knew Howard. After we moved to Teaneck and Mary Ann and her family followed us, I began to teach at Morris High School, the first high school built in the Bronx, built in the great borough of the Bronx. And then at the last school founded in the Bronx by Dr. Morris Meister, my alma mater, the Bronx High School of Science, where I spent most of my teaching career and taught for 23 years. I taught mechanical drawing, required studio art, placement, advanced placement, medical and technical illustration. That was a unique class. Computer graphics, which in 1985 was one of the very first such classes in the New York City system. I didn't know too much about computers. I knew a lot about design. So when my principal asked me if I would do this, I said, but I don't know too much about computers. They said, don't worry, the kids will teach you. And they did, and it worked out very well. Then in 1980, I introduced Italian as a 10th language to be taught at school, together with Latin, French, Spanish, German, Russian, Japanese, Korean, and Mandarin Chinese. I taught Italian for 2 years before the class was taken over by a wonderful native speaker who taught Latin and Italian. Italian, by the way, is still taught there through advanced placement, for which the students get college credit. Since most students at science aspire to careers in science, medicine, and law, I told them that I was there to civilize them with art. Of course, they distinguished themselves in art, music, sports, and debate as they did in every other area of the curriculum. They excelled in art as they did in all other subjects. They did wonderfully creative work and emerged as winners in contests in these subjects as they did as national science and math competitions, in which they have won more awards than any other high school in the nation. 9 Nobel Prize winners. Rose, we're very proud of that. We have 9 Nobel Prize winners. We graduated from science, the largest number of any high school. The last Nobel Prize winner was Claudia Golden, class of '63. It's the first woman to be included in our Bronx Science Nobel laureates. The first woman, and she got the prize for economics. I don't know, is that a science, economics? So I just want to tell you a little bit about 2 of the contests that we won that were quite extraordinary. One was a subway poster contest in which my students created original art on large cardboard posters that were actually exhibited in many subway cars. The winners and I were invited to City Hall. We took the subway to City Hall from the Bronx. And then Mayor Ed Koch gave the teachers a gold-plated token, which I still have. I'm sure that we all remember, if we grew up in the city, that the subways had posters. All the cars had posters. You remember Miss Rheingold was one of the posters. Well, these were the actual posters that they used in the subway that they distributed to the schools, and the kids did the artwork directly on the posters. It was a beautiful contest because you got to see a lot of talent. One honor in art that we are very proud of was being awarded the first prize in the New York City opera competition, for which we submitted a group project of 18 beautiful batiks of fabric, which we joined together and presented as a huge hanging on the subject of opera. So, they could take the word opera, the word itself, and do some beautiful design, or they could take a scene from an opera. It was just a marvelous collection. And I couldn't see myself choosing which ones to pick. So we decided as a class that we would make it a group project. So when I called the City Opera, they said, a group project, that means that everybody has to go to the opera. You have to invite everybody to the opera. So I said, well, look, are you discouraging me without even seeing it? Oh, all right, I'm sorry. All right, bring it in. So I walked into the City Opera with this huge thing. There was no place to open it other than the floor. So we presented a huge hanging on the subject of opera. When I personally delivered the hanging at Lincoln Center, they unfurled the piece on the floor, and everybody surrounded the work with one person saying, wow, this must be from music and art. To which I responded, no, it's from the Bronx High School of Science. Well, there was a jury that awarded the prizes. The jury that selected the winning entry was made up of conductor Julius Rudell, American soprano Beverly Sills, and her daughter Meredith, known as Muffy, and the TV personality that lived in Leonia at the time, Jean Shalit. Does anybody remember Jean Shalit? With the mustache. Okay, who lived in Leonia and is now 98 years old. I just found this out yesterday. They awarded our work the first prize. Those who were there said they couldn't walk away from it. It was just extraordinary. So, of course, the City Opera invited the 18 students, myself and Howard, to a night at the opera. All 18 students were invited to a beautiful night at the opera to see The Saint of Bleecker Street, a 20th century opera by Giancarlo Menotti with a libretto written in English, and the added invitation to an after-concert reception for the cast given at Lincoln Center, to which we were all invited as special guests. It was a stellar evening with delicious food and a meager table of kosher food because it was during Passover. which was bypassed by everybody, of course, including the students. About midnight, a McDonald's truck drove into the second floor of the New York State Theater. And the students from the Bronx delighted in the preferred fast food and left fancy food and canapes and religion aside and ate the hot dogs. Teaching at Bronx Science and volunteering at the New York Botanical Garden was a pleasure that came to an end when in 1998, yes, I was supposed to retire in 1996, and I just couldn't do it. I needed to be there longer. So I accepted 2 years of a part-time job at Bronx Science. But then after 2 years, when I had to get up anyway and go on the Cross Bronx and get to school, and then have a half a day off, which didn't, I mean, the day was broken already. It really didn't mean anything. So I finally decided, okay, this is it. I'm ready to retire. Also, we had the birth of Felicia that year, our grandson. So that was a good reason to leave teaching. So when in the first year of retirement, I was able to enjoy leisure time activities like babysitting and reading without guilt for the first time since graduate school, you know, when you don't have any assignments, you read anything you like. That level of activity was not enough for a youthful 59-year-old. For many years, I had a book in the back of my mind, which was brought forward by Howard as he urged me for several years to write a cookbook. Since he saw my cooking as unusual and exotic, coming from a family with an Irish mother who had attended the Fanny Farmer Cooking School in Boston, therefore cooked good, basic, delicious American food. May Marie LaMarca, my mother-in-law, gave me her copy of the Fanny Farmer Cooking School from 1917. That, in turn, we gave to Nicoletta when she got married, so she has the book. The book, interestingly, starts with, guess, how to start a fire, you know, because you had a fire stove, so. I love to read cookbooks in bed. In fact, when Howard once said to a friend, "My wife is strange. She likes to read cookbooks in bed," he answered, "You mustn't have slept with many women, since many like to read cookbooks in bed." I also love to read college catalogs. So when our son-in-law, Stephen Sacco, Dr. Stephen Sacco, gave me a catalog of the New School University, where he still teaches, formerly known as the New School for Social Research, which was an early innovator in adult education by allowing people who were not matriculated in the college to take college-level courses. I, of course, was curious to know if there was anything that I might be interested in, because I really believe in and have practiced a lifetime of education. I've always felt that taking a course was one of the best things you could do, and always enjoyed it, always had a wonderful time. The class that caught my attention was one-day workshop on how to publish a cookbook, taught by Professor Gary Goldberg. Is that lucky or what? Luck, I don't know where luck comes from, but anyway, it was lucky that I found this thing that suited me to a T. So I registered for the one-day Saturday workshop at the New School. I went to 12th Street on the day without discussing it with Howard because I didn't want to be under pressure. It was a class of 30 people, and the first thing that the professor asked us was, "Why does the world need your cookbook?" The answers were interesting, and they helped me clarify my own thinking. After a lecture on how to write a query letter, how to present a proposal to a publisher, signing a contract, creating a manuscript, and submitting the manuscript to a publisher, he introduced Claudia Caruana, a published author who had spent 10 years submitting a manuscript to various publishers for a book on the cooking of Malta. You know, Malta is a small island south of Sicily, and receiving rejection letter after rejection letter, until her manuscript was accepted for publication by Hippocrene Books, a Manhattan publishing house which published the book in 1998. with the title Taste of Malta. After lunch, we were introduced to a young and very articulate editor from Hippocrene Publishing House. She explained the manner in which you present your ideas, write a query letter, then a proposal, and then follow through all the steps that lead to publication. The editor, Miss Anne McBride, gave each of us her business card, and the professor invited us to get in touch with him if we had any question or needed additional information. I got home. I thought, well, does the world really need my book? Can I turn a page? I did know many unusual and unique recipes, which I had prepared and noted in notebooks during our years of marriage. First in handwritten form. I'll show them to you. Well, let's see. You probably can't see anything, but this is literally handwritten in cursive. So in these notebooks, I gave the date, the guests, the menus, and the recipes for each event. Then I began doing this on the computer, creating well-designed pages of the menus, each recipe including illustrations of the individual dishes and courses and of course, tested recipes. So, now, my basic research had already been done. I owned a pen and I owned a desk. Also a computer, blank paper, and a printer. I knew how to write a query letter now. I had learned how to write a proposal, had met an editor who had given me her card. I had the time and no valid excuses. So I wrote to Miss McBride. I received a response from Miss McBride and a request for a proposal, but I didn't quite know how to write a proposal. So I contacted Professor Goldberg, to whom I dedicated actually my first book, Sicilian Feasts. This was the beginning of my second career as a food writer and author. The first suggestion of Professor Goldberg was that I buy a book called Recipes into Type, which covered the conventions of writing a recipe. You know, a recipe has certain conventions. You have to give the ingredients in the order in which they're used and be consistent with the weights and measures and be clear and concise. All along, I was thinking about the theme of the book. Which recipes were unique enough? Which collection would have made a sellable book? I thought about combining calligraphy and cooking and possibly doing a reproduction of the notebooks that I used, maybe in Chancery cursive, which I also taught in all my classes and love doing. And doing the book myself instead of having it set into type. I also thought about doing a book which would be for the reader a kind of diary of entertainment like the notebooks that I kept myself. Some of these ideas were rejected by Howard, who was an art director in advertising and knew the current trends. So I got advice from a lot of people. I finally decided to concentrate on what I knew best and decided to write a book about the varied, unusual, delicious, and unique cooking of Sicily, which was influenced by the many foreign occupations of what is called the Pearl of the Mediterranean. First the Greeks, then the Phoenicians, then the Romans, followed by the Byzantines, the Arabs, the Normans, the Spanish, other regions of Italy. Yes, there's an area of Italy, Naples and south, including Sicily, that's called the Reign of the Two Sicilies. So even other regions attacked Sicily. But Sicily became part of the 20 regions of this new country named Italy in 1861 after the unification. After I finished the proposal, I wrote to Miss McBride saying that I had finished the proposal and whether I could bring it to her or should I give it to her secretary. I wanted to say, I want to bring you the proposal, but I didn't dare. I thought, she only gave me her card. I don't know her, and perhaps that wouldn't be proper. So that's how I approached it. But she wrote back an email right away to tell me that if she knew when I was coming, she would be sure to be there so she could see me again. Well, this was an appointment in reverse, which seemed like a very good omen. I went to the office on Madison Avenue between 33rd and 34th Street, and I personally handed her the binder with the neatly typed and bound pages. She opened the binder and asked me, "Is this your manuscript, dear?" I said, "No, this is my proposal." Well, sometime later, she confessed that when she got the proposal from me, she said, "I thought this was a manuscript because I had never seen a proposal that was 64 pages." I didn't know. They'd said, you write a proposal and then you write some recipes to show how you write recipes and so on. But it turned out to be almost a manuscript. At that point, I met the publisher, Dr. George Blagowidow. I signed the contract and I began writing the manuscript, which I submitted in record time since I had such a resource of written and tested recipes. The book was in print less than 6 months later, which is considered extraordinary. My second book, which is currently out of print, but it may come out again, is The Language and Travel Guide to Sicily, which my publisher proposed to me. George Blagowidow was a Russian aristocrat whose family left Russia for Poland after the Bolshevik Revolution. He then immigrated to the United States, earned a PhD from the New School for Social Research, and was the founder of Hippocrene Books. He was indeed a gentleman and a scholar, and he loved Sicily, just everything about it. Its natural beauty, the art, the ancient Greek and Roman temples and theaters, the architecture, the history, the culture, and of course the cuisine. The Language and Travel Guide to Sicily is quite unique in that it has a section devoted to practical travel dialogues, which are recorded in both Sicilian and Italian for the traveler, and recorded in CDs. If we redo the book, it'll probably be done some other way. So I wanted to have these spoken records just to teach the language, both Italian and Sicilian, and to know the relationship of the two languages, which are both derived from Latin. The travel section of the book goes through the 9 provinces of Sicily, describing what would be of interest to visitors. The third book came about when the publisher, George Blagowidow, called me and invited me to lunch and told me that a proposal had been received from a famous TV cooking personality who had asked $5,000 advance. Hippocrene is a small company. They give you $500, not $5,000. So George asked me if I could write a book on the cooking of Emilia-Romagna, the region above Tuscany, which has given us prosciutto, parmigiano reggiano, balsamic vinegar, green lasagne, bolognese, torta ferrarese, and many other memorable dishes. When you ask somebody from Emilia-Romagna, where's the best cooking, he'll say, at home, it's my grandmother. And as many of you probably know, Bologna is a great eating city, great food in Bologna. As it happens, I am as familiar with the cooking of Emilia-Romagna as I am with the cooking of my native Sicily, and have visited both regions during most of our 26 trips to Italy. We had an aunt from the hill town of Berceto who lived with us, and we visited her beautiful town every time she or we traveled to Emilia-Romagna. I sent a proposal to Hippocrene, and the book was published in 2011. That's the cooking of Emilia-Romagna, which right now is being revised. As my first book, Sicilian Feasts, was revised by adding new recipes and by adding a whole section of color photographs from Francesca, my producer, director, cook, everything. During the decade following the publication of Sicilian Feasts, I promoted the books with talks, demonstrations, lectures in bookstores when they still existed, libraries and cultural organizations, and teaching, which remained my first love. I taught at ICE, the Institute of Culinary Education, and conducted guided tours of Arthur Avenue in the Bronx, the great neighborhood borough of the Bronx, which is the last Little Italy in New York City. An event which remains memorable occurred when the members of the Women's Alliance at CUC prepared a dinner made up of dishes taken exclusively from my newly published book, Sicilian Feasts. When I entered and saw the magnificent buffet, Betty, Marianne, and anybody else was there, and I saw this buffet, it felt like my mother, my grandmother, and my father had catered this thing. It was very moving, and I think of it often. I've never forgotten it. It was the greatest tribute. Yes. So this was my second career, and it was great fun. My intention in writing my cookbooks was to give second and third generation Americans with Italian roots, and particularly Sicilian roots, the recipes for the delicious and memorable dishes that they all had and remember fondly, for which mothers and grandmothers had not left recipes. In Sicilian Feasts, I give the titles in English, of course, the titles of the recipes, and in the Sicilian language, as they might remember them, as the second and third generation might remember. They might not know the dialect, but they know the names of the dishes. And I did it with an exhortation to be proud of the Sicilian dialect that they may have learned as children, and to know that when they speak Sicilian, or when they speak Piemontese, or when they speak Tuscan, they are not speaking bad Italian. They are not speaking incorrect Italian. And it's been kind of a mission of mine to say that to people, because many people feel diminished because they're speaking a dialect and it's incorrect. It's not incorrect. It's a different language. So they're speaking another language like Italian, French, Spanish, Romanian, Portuguese. They all derive from Latin. So Sicilian derives from Latin. It is not a dialect of Italian. It's a dialect of Latin. And so on the same level as the other languages. The introduction of Sicilian in a book written in English became significant in my third career when Babbel, the popular language learning program, sponsored 2 of my YouTube videos, because they like the fact that we use a little bit of Italian, and, well, there's an emphasis on language. One program in particular, one video in particular, where Nicoletta was cooking with me. And as most of you know that know me, I've never spoken English to Nicoletta. I've spoken only Italian all her life. And my life, now that my closest friends and parents and so on are all gone, there's nobody to speak Italian to. So I maintain it. I have never spoken English to Nicoletta. And when, in one of her childish outbursts, when she wanted to kill me for some reason, I think we had been sick and we had had enough of each other. So she started answering me in English, but I never answered her in English. I said, I'm going to speak Italian. And eventually, of course, she went back to Italian. Well, it gives me the greatest pleasure, first of all, to know that I have transferred my language to my child, and to be able to speak it every day. So anybody who knows a second language has to teach it to their kids. All right, and this brings me to my third career, which, like my second one, came about through a series of happenings and coincidences and the follow-through that made it possible. You can talk about luck all you want, but follow-through is what you really need to accomplish things for real. Our daughter Nicoletta discovered a wonderful BBC YouTube channel produced by Vicky Bennison, a beautiful and brilliant young woman who bought a vacation house in Italy and became fascinated by the fact that Italian grandmothers, upwards of 80, all her videos are upwards of 80, still make pasta at home, sometimes with their own mother's rolling pins. Vicky began making videos and created Pasta Grannies. I don't know if any of you have discovered it, but do go home and look up Pasta Grannies. It is a fascinating program. So Pasta Grannies has interviewed women above 80 all over Italy. I don't know how many videos they've done. And the video has has been successful beyond all expectations. When she published her first cookbook, Nicoletta bought it as a gift for me. She was so impressed with the book and the channel that she was moved to write to the producer, tell her that her own mother was also an Italian nonna who cooked. Of course, she never expected an answer from this woman. You know, she's writing to a person in England. Anyway, thinking that she would never hear from her again, instead she got an email asking for my resume, which Nicoletta sent to her. And in 3 weeks' time, I had Vicky's crew in our house to make one of the first videos of Pasta Grannies in English. I gave them the choice. I said, do you want me to do it in Italian or in English? They said, no, in English. So I was the first Pasta Granny that did the video in English. That video of the special ravioli from my birth city of Ragusa. I have to tell you that most people who make ravioli with ricotta, which is a proper thing, but generally they put cheese and salt and pepper. In Ragusa, we are of two minds, and nobody agrees on this. One of my grandmothers made them sweet, and one of my grandmothers made them the usual way with parsley and whatever else. In Ragusa, we like our ravioli filling with ricotta, sugar, and grated, in my case, grated orange rind. Not everybody does that, but I do. And we feel very strongly about it. What's wrong with something sweet and something savory? We all eat Chinese food. We know that savory and sweet is a very good combination. And this sweet filling is served with a magnificent pork sauce that is rich and unctuous and just fantastic. So my family does it that way. So that video was a special ravioli from Ragusa. That video has been viewed by over 400,000 people. And that kind of boggles my mind because I don't know how much 400,000 people is on YouTube. The channel Pasta Grannies has reached over 1 million subscribers. So if you've never seen it, do yourself a favor. Go home and look up Pasta Grannies. Vicky, the host, has been very, very supportive of my own channel, Kitchen on the Cliff, which has over 140,000 subscribers worldwide. My first book, Sicilian Feast, has been published in a 3rd edition with added recipes, a new cover, and the beautiful color photos of my producer and director, the one and only, my beloved granddaughter, Francesca LaMarca Sacco. The same is planned for my second cookbook, The Cooking of Emilia-Romagna, and both books are guides to Kitchen on the Cliff, which keeps growing in viewership. The constant mail to my YouTube channel from every corner of the world keeps me very busy, and if I feel down, all I have to do is start answering those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful comments. I would say 99.9% positive. Once in a while, there's a man that seems to be very irked by my nails. And they're always too long for him. And he writes me these, your nails are too long, and a cook should not have nails. All right. And now I have a group of people who defend me. And one of them is a priest that I've gotten to know quite well. And he said, no, I like your nails. I like the way you keep them. So, one dissident is not important. So the constant mail, okay. I'm almost finished. So this was my second career. No, this isn't it. Okay. Okay, you can't see from where you are, but I wanted to just give you an idea. Of course, you can come up and look at them. These are the books that I kept from the beginning of our marriage. I didn't do that before. So these books are of parties and gatherings that we had. Typically, Howard would design the invitation. I have a copy of the invitation in the book. Let me see. This was Nicoletta's Sweet 16 party. And I have the date of the party, the menu. We had insalata russa, which is a potato salad with peas that Italians call Russian. The Russians have never heard of it. Salade niçoise, we know what that is. Marinated eggs, little sandwiches, egg salad on white and wheat bread, the tuna salad, roast beef, ham and Swiss, cheese turnovers, bagna cauda. That's interesting for a party. Everybody know what bagna cauda is? Bagna cauda is a Piemontese dip meant for raw vegetables. And it's butter and anchovies. And it's a rich, very rich, and it's hot. It's served hot. So you dip celery sticks and stuff like that. Okay, so you have, in this case, there's an invitation. This happens to be done in Chancery cursive. You get the idea. Totally hand done. There's another one. This one is just.
Excuse me, we have to close.
Yeah. And I'll show you lastly how I did them when I started doing them at the computer. If they don't all fall, which they will. Oops. Well, okay, it's not so important. I mean, this is done with the computer, and same thing. The occasion, the people who attended, the menu, and all the recipes. So you see, when I had the chance to do the first book, my research was done, and it was just so. I'm going to give you one last thing. And that is that last week, 2 weeks ago, we have one admirer that lives near the North Pole. And he called one day to say, I'm going to be near New York. May I come and meet you? So he came, and we met him. And he is now the director of a kind of food bank and general representative to the government of the Inuit people in Canada. And he had a dinner last week. Let me see if I have all the, on January 25th. Howard and I and Nicoletta appear on a giant screen at a Sicilian feast dinner for over 120 people in the most northern reaches of Canada. And we saw them all. We were projected. We saw the people saw us. And it is the Inuit Community Food Center, which strives to strengthen health, food access, and food service to Iqaluit at Nunavut, Canada. And the director is Josef Murdoch Flowers, an energetic, very smart, marvelous man who has taken this really to heart. And so that's the third career. I'm only 85, so the only problem I have is that I can't walk, but otherwise we'll probably continue to do Kitchen on the Cliff. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve the community. This promise of the heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives. Let us conclude with singing hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
Alice B. Toklas was a lifelong companion and cook for the writer Gertrude Stein, who was one of the famous American expatriates who helped Paris sparkle in the early 20th century. Alice B. Toklas did not like Matisse. He had once asked what was for dinner before accepting the invitation. It's all right for other people to do this, but a Frenchman knows better. So when Miss Stein said that Monsieur Matisse was coming, I would make fried eggs. It takes the same number of eggs and the same amount of butter, but it shows less respect. And Matisse will understand. Let's celebrate friendship, fun, fellowship, and cooking. On this beautiful day, go in peace, make peace, be at peace.